Hi, I'm Andrew Wallace, and welcome to the We've Got a Problem podcast, where each week we explore inspiring stories of struggle, success, and solutions to prevalent problems and how our guests have turned problems into opportunities. This week I'm joined by Catherine Berra, equestrian, mother, world traveler, expert dater, and now author. Her new book is These Stories Are True, I You Not, a humorous look at online dating for the unsuspecting older human. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. So we talked a little bit off air. Dating can be daunting at any age.
Yes.
And tell me how you got to write a book about this. How did you come to do this? What brought you here to this lowly stage?
Right. At this stage of my life. Well, I was a single mom for a really long time. I raised my son. His dad was kind of absent. So I really didn't date a lot during the whole raising of the angry young teenage boy phase. And after he went to college, I thought, okay, I have several friends who had really good success with online dating. And I thought, well, what the heck? I might as well try it. So I had some friends help me write a profile.
Sure.
And as I state in the book, literally the first incident, I don't know. I mean, I wrote this profile. I put a picture of myself on a cruise. I'm leaning back on the railing and I have this pretty sundress and I have a little cleavage. I'm not going to lie. But the first comment I got was nice jugs, and I thought, wow, okay. So I was like,
the state of men in the world today.
I wasn't sure if I should be offended or, it was a compliment. So I thought, okay, let's just carry on, So literally over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, I had these dates that I thought, God, there must be something wrong with me because this is too bizarre for anyone to even believe. So I had an office, and my office colleague who was in the office next to me used to come over and chat every now and then. I would tell her all these stories, and she, Kathy, you got to write a book. You have got to write a book because no one's going to believe this. And I said, I don't know if I want to write it because I don't want anyone to know.
Right.
So literally during COVID, I had been thinking about this. I wrote a poetry book also. I published that in 2020, but I thought, my friend called me, she goes, this is the perfect time to do this. She said, we're all locked down.
Why not?
You're sitting here, I'll help you remember the stories. And of course she did. She helped me recall several that I did not want to remember and I had blocked out. But so again, I put it together and I have a great online publishing consultant who helped me with my other book. Her name is Polly Latovsky. She's with My Word Publishing. So she helps people self-publish basically. Sure. Goes through the ropes. So I just sat down during COVID and I just started putting it together and I had a little editor and then the cover of the book is me sitting at my kitchen table pointing, I cartooned myself and I just did it because I thought, people are just, what's really weird about it, another facet of this whole thing is 2 weeks after I published this book, my friend who convinced me to write it said, have you ever heard of Book Talk? And I said,
oh, yeah.
What? And she said, on TikTok. And I said, well, I remember TikTok during COVID because everyone's doing these funky dances and all this. I helped my friend, record herself doing some weird things. And so I got on there and I used to work in television. So editing and doing little videos, it didn't faze me. And I think I have in less than a year, I have almost 7,000 followers. And a couple of my videos have gone, hit 1 million views. And it's basically on the chapters in the book,
Oh, so perfect.
But it's amazing how the topic is relevant. So that's why I did it. And I just figured, you might as well laugh at my expense. We're all sitting around. We're all sad. We're all locked down. And that's how it started. And it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It reminds, I have a friend who's also an author who said she'd become a single mother, and she at one point said she was one case of the flu from living under an overpass. and I mean, she was in dire straits, and she'd always been a writer, so she was just writing away. And she ended up writing a book, not because she decided she wanted to take on some big challenge, but because she lost the one column that was paying her electric bill that she wrote for a newspaper. And she's like, well, I guess I have to. and went on to sell a bunch of books and do a bunch of
That's
those
great.
things. But in a way, necessity is the mother of invention. But also,
Sure.
you get into these situations where you go, I can't not tell these stories now.
Exactly. Exactly. And what's even stranger is I've run quite a few podcasts, and it's amazing how I thought my stories were mortifying. And
You've heard some more now, haven't you?
oh my God. Well, I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago. It was called Dating is a Drag. And one of the people was a drag queen. And she was telling me us all about her dating stuff, So it's like, what is going on in the world? So I think, just what appealed to me about your podcast is that, we do have to take these opportunities to just let people know, God, you are not alone in this craziness.
Well, oh boy, does that make a huge difference. I mean,
Yep.
I think people take everything very seriously when they get into these kinds of things. And of course, you have to have a sense of humor about it, because nobody would believe you
Exactly.
if these things just happen. But you go into these moments and you want to engage, you want to be you want to be yourself with this person. And you're hoping that they'll also be somebody that you want to be with. And yet you get these situations where you go, are you serious? I mean, is this...
Well, that's the title I put. You're not. This is true. This actually happened to me. And the stories too. There's a couple in there from men, that I dated that told me their stories.
Oh boy.
And so it's interesting because I think the other thing about TikTok that has been interesting is the comments. I'm writing a sequel now based on the comments on a chapter in my book. I did a video about online dating scammers, and it was just this little 7-second video where I said, when a guy's in the, says he's in the military and he just got finished training in Afghanistan. He's going to take a nice hot bath. And I'm like, so that video, I mean, the comments are hysterical, but at the same time, I can't tell you how many men and women have had the same script used.
Oh, yeah.
And also how many people have been scammed.
Oh, yes.
It blows my mind. Like $37,000. She's never met the guy. I'm thinking, you hear about this all the time on the news and everything, but I think it's really helped. The engagement with people for me is fascinating because I think people do think that they're alone. And my other question is, what's the condition of our, the state of ourselves as humans that these kind of stories and these kind of things are going on and happening, and the ghosting and whatever. Well, and again,
there's a lot of things going on here and nothing is very simple. We always want to believe it's just one thing, or it's just me, right? There's just one thing, and I'm just missing this thing. It's just this. It's just that. Well, we could unpack all of these things, but one of my guests several weeks ago said, we all want to believe that we're different, that we're unique, that the problems we're having have never been had by anybody before, and it's insurmountable and it's huge. And in the case of this, knowing, first of all, sharing these kinds of stories, but also going, everybody's going through this. This is a universal experience. Anybody who's getting online, trying to date, I liken it to I liken it to my experience, which is the longer you go, the older you get, the more the quality people have been taken up, and they're in a relationship. So what you're finding, what you find online are people with some sort of baggage, something that's not quite right. And then you've got to figure out, it's like a scavenger hunt. You've got to be Sherlock Holmes to go, what is that thing? That's what's wrong with this person? Why are they single?
Well, again, and it's true. There's some, as I state in the book too, at a certain age, you get to an age where some people have been married 30 years, then they get married again. And I've met men with 35-year-old kids and 2-year-olds, and I'm thinking, no, I've been through that. But one of the funny things that happened to me recently is, it's been quite a while since I got online. And so I decided to get back on just to, see.
Sure.
And I started talking to a man, and I don't know, I guess I told him about the book and what I do and everything. And the next call we had was, well, I really, really admire you, but I'm really afraid of you because I read your book. So a lot of my friends say, every man that dates you now thinks they're going to be the next chapter. And I thought, well, if that's what they're thinking, then they should behave themselves. So
that's right. That's
you're right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what?
and I'm not a quitter, but I think you do get to a certain age, you're like, oh, for God's sakes, and and I think too is that when you're an independent, financially stable woman, you don't have that desperation, so
Sure.
you know what you want and all that. So, but it's been such a fun experience, and I'm really shocked at just the response to it, and it's not like $1 million bestseller or anything, but I sell books every day, and I do a lot of my own marketing and engagement and things like
Sure.
that. But I just think people, it's so funny because you honestly think your worst story is the worst one that ever it was, and then you hear someone else's, you're like, oh my God,
Well, that's
thank God
I.
it's not just me, and it's all ages. I'm
Right.
talking.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
I comment about a girl in the book who was 27 when I knew her, who was dating a guy for over a year. And, at dinner one night, he said, oh, I decided I'm going back to my husband. And she said, what? She had no idea. And this is a younger person. So that's more of a thing,
Right.
I guess, with younger generation.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
thought,
Fine.
oh
You
my
do
God,
you. All God's children.
so she was mortified because she had not, because he was
Right.
with a man, but because she didn't have any idea.
Right.
So, and it's just a different world online. I talk to friends who are older and they say, God forbid, remember the days when you actually had to write what was it called? Personal ads.
Right.
And you had to write a letter and then you had to put it in the mail and then you had to wait for the response and then you had to call and now it's just like, oh, hell no. Oh, and
Right.
it's just a totally different
Well,
idea.
and of course it's good and bad because you can very quickly. I read a fantastic article that said you need to think of online dating like cultivating sales leads. It's just a lead tool. It's just
It's true.
And so you're trying to answer the question with all the interactions online. Not do I want to settle down with this person? Are they the one? Are they right for me? The only question you're trying to answer up front is, do I want to have dinner with this person or a drink with this person, right? And so first is, do I want to have a drink with this person? During that drink, now you're trying to figure out whether they're crazy or not. And once you've figured out whether they're crazy or not, do I want to have dinner with this person?
Yeah.
And that's it. Like
Yeah.
that's that and that sets the bar so much lower for
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going from because who can tell, especially
Right.
from the 6 words that they put on their Hinge profile,
Exactly.
what the thing is. But still, it's intimidating because
It
we go
is.
and we're just not ourselves.
I
We're
know.
somebody different.
That's true. You try to be yourself, and then, I think that's the other thing is just the whole profile, thing is it can be just so false. And like for the scammer guy that I had tried to scam me, he had taken pictures from a military obituary site and posted them. Yeah, so he had like 15 pictures. And I'm thinking, and then when I found that out, I was like, I don't even know how I found that out, but I did. And I was furious, so you just get a little bit more tentative and a little bit so, and then you try to meet people through friends and all that. So it's exhausting.
Well, and of course, you go in fits and starts. I'm sure, as I always have, that you get on the internet and you're like, all right, I'm ready. I've got my armor on. I've got my new pictures. I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's go. And then you find yourself having a couple of lackluster dates or experiences, and you go, yeah, you know what? I don't need this right now. And then,
Yeah.
right. And then you watch some romantic comedy and everybody's lovey-dovey and you go, oh, that'd be nice. And
Yeah.
so you get, maybe it would be nice to have somebody to come home to. And
Right.
all I need. And then you start lowering your standards too. You come down and you're going, all right, breathing, employed.
Employed. That's a very important one. Yes.
When I was dating in college, the first one was either they're in college or they have a job. Mm-hmm. It's like a funnel. It gets smaller and smaller as you start looking at these things, and you go, well, maybe I need to. Okay, you know what? Maybe it's okay if they're not employed. It's okay if they don't have a car. It's okay if they ride the
They
bus.
don't have teeth.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay if their teeth aren't theirs anymore.
I mean, I think you have to know what you want to find, but that's what I'm saying. I tried everything. I just had such weird experiences, and the men have had, it's not just, I mean, oh my gosh, some of these men, the stories they told me. And so, what do you do? But
Right.
again, the whole premise of your podcast, you have to find fun and levity in everything. And I think that's
Yes.
what this book has really kind of, the trajectory of the book has taken me on this really interesting adventure, sort of meeting people and laughing and really just studying the human condition, because it's
Yeah.
very, very bizarre these days, especially after COVID. I think the lack of social contact. And I thought, in fact, I say in my book, I started the book during COVID, and I got back on another site, and I thought, wow, COVID might be great because you do these sorts of things. You have Zooms, you have FaceTime,
Sure.
and yeah, it didn't
Didn't
pan
work.
out. But I
Well,
mean,
so
some people probably did, but I think our ability to socialize has
decreasing.
changed
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yes. Well,
So
so I mean, one of the questions that comes up from what you were just saying is, how can we continue to maintain a sense of humor through all this, and why is it important?
you have to give people grace, really, because everyone has been through so much in their lives that I mean, they can say what they want on their profile, but in reality, you really don't ever know somebody from a profile. So you just have to give them grace, and then you just have to be patient with it, I think. And I think we just need to continue. And you have to understand, life is, in my opinion, I've always been an optimist. So I know people, I am. And I'm thinking, I always see the sense of humor in everything. It's like, are you really kidding me? But I just think that we have to keep a sense of humor about it, because people are in the same boat you are. They're nervous. They're not sure what they want. They've been through maybe a horrible divorce or a death of a spouse, or a recent breakup. And I mean, you just have to look at it I always try to look at it from the perspective of the other
Hmm.
person too, right? So, but I just do. I think life is, as I've gotten older, it's just, you have to look at life like, oh my gosh, this is kind of bizarre and funny. It's exhausting, like I said, because, you go in there, and now it's almost like I've changed my attitude about it. I go in with a little less seriousness. Not that
Hmm.
it's a joke to me, but I just go in and say, okay, what's going to happen? What's this one going to be like? And you have to just engage with the person,
Right.
real, genuine way, because otherwise it's just not fun, so
Yeah.
just, I think, have fun with it. And again, I'm trying it again now. I just went back on something when I was in LA. My friend convinced me to do it, so we
There
shall
you
see.
go. We shall see. More updates are needed. More information later.
That's right.
So you've gone through a lot of change throughout the years.
Hmm.
You've been through a lot of different things: equestrian, mother, world traveler,
Hmm.
all these things. Now author. Why and how have you been able to maintain a sense of adaptability? Why is that important? How?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think as a single mom, you just kind of, I mean, a single parent, I shouldn't say just single mom. Um, you just, and this is what's so funny too. I'll always find myself kind of being a little extra too tough, and I don't ask
Mm,
for help and things like that. And that whole experience made me really resilient. So I
mm-hmm.
think, and again, you look at, I had a person I loved dearly, 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 and I would have married him. He passed away from cancer when, in 2003. And I think after situations like that, you just look at life so differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a blessing. Everything's a blessing, really. I mean, I have this horse that came into my life when I was doing a grad program. When I first moved back to Colorado, and I never had a horse my whole life, and all of a sudden I have a horse. I'm like, what the hell? So, I think everything's a blessing. And I think that's how I look at things. And because I think, because you've been through really hard, difficult challenges, everything else seems like a piece of cake after that,
Yes,
And,
yes. There is that sense of, I actually
mhm,
talked with a guest recently, that there's this sense of exposure therapy, like
mhm,
that once you've seen it, once you know that it's,
mhm,
that's bad, that, I mean, getting bad, or
mhm.
how bad things can get, then everything else is like, okay, I've got this. I got through that. I went through that. That was hard. That was difficult.
Right.
This is nothing. There's a movie called Wag the Dog that
Oh, I've
Dustin
seen that,
Hoffman
yeah.
is. Oh, right. So, okay. So for those who haven't, this guy Dustin Hoffman plays a producer who, no matter what it is, goes, this is nothing. This is nothing. Now, that was something over there that I had. I was making a movie once. We got into post-production and found out we didn't have the rights. That was something. This is nothing. You know,
Right.
and so, but once you look at it and you've had those experiences, you go, you know what? It's okay. I got it. I really do. You know,
Yeah, it's like you accumulate this set of tools and you
Yes.
just have them in your toolbox. You're like, okay, I know what to do about this one. So I think, and again, I feel, I don't know. There's a thing I always put on my phone that's a reminder kind of thing that it comes up all the time every day at 11 o'clock. It says, what am I being offered right now? Like what is the world offering me right now? And I think you just have to look at it in a positive way. So.
And be open to it. Be open. Be not quite so close, because that's the tendency, at least that I've seen, is to look at things and go, well, not interested, not interested, not interested. This is just passing.
Right.
And when you're not open to the gifts that are being given to you on a daily basis,
Right.
you're never going to take advantage of them and then in retrospect you go back and you go, that was it. That would have been nice.
Right. And I think too, lately, just with COVID and a lot of things this year for me, I kind of get in these little funks and then I go out and ride my horse. So I always say, this is my church. And I'm very fortunate to have this horse. I mean, like I said, she came into but I get out in nature, and I just think about things, go through the river with my horse. And I know that's just like a movie, but, I do think we have to find that. Like, what do they say? Try to find a little vacation every day in your life. Even if it means just sitting on a bench and listening to the birds. I don't know. I know that sounds, sort of cliche, but I really do think that moving back to Colorado, I was in D.C. for 20 years in the Northern Virginia area. So my life was complete stress all the time. Raising my son, I had this crazy jobs, and I came back here to help my parents, who were aging, and they're now both passed on. But I've just found Colorado to be so completely different. And it's taken me, I've been here 8 years now, and it's taken me almost 8 years to just decelerate, So, and so I think the other part of all this is I never expected to write this book, but I did because I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. And I think the most important thing is constantly learning, constantly trying something that makes you, a little out of your comfort zone. And that quote, I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt, do something every day that scares you, or something like that, to that effect. And that's just my motto. You just have to do stuff that, oh my God, I don't know if I could do that, but then you do it. And it just keeps you vibrant. I think it keeps you young. I think it keeps you relevant in your own life, So.
Yeah, it keeps you young. Really, I mean, that's the honest thing is that so often, I mean, even in our in our younger days, in our 20s and 30s, as we start to go to close off doors, and you think of it like a decision tree,
Right.
where so the longer you go, the more the forks have gone and moved along, and a certain part of it is now off limits to you, and the more decisions you make, the further you get that those things are, but you can absolutely change the trajectory by starting to make those decisions that bring you into a positive direction.
Right.
And again, having some fun doing something that scares you. That's been another theme lately that keeps recurring, that we have our zones of comfort, learning, and then anxiety above that. And you, as one of my guests, and I'll keep plugging him until the cows come home, because he's got it right. But one of my guests, Kevin Palmieri, said, look, you want to be in the learning zone. Nothing happens in the comfort zone. You're not getting anywhere.
Yep.
And you'd like to pretty much stay out of the anxiety zone, but kind of tiptoe into it every once in a while, so that you keep moving it, because you can, those zones will change where you are, how you're doing. And just do right at the top of the learning zone all the time. That's where you're going to be most productive.
I agree.
It's going to, again, you're going to keep changing, keep evolving, keep having a good time. Yeah. So we're kind of coming to the end here. I've got a couple of questions I try to ask everybody. What do you think, and these can be very specific or broad, general stuff. What do you think the biggest fallacy is that everybody buys into? What's horribly overrated?
I want to say these days, a four-year education in
Mm,
college.
okay.
I have met so many young people who have 50 to $300,000 in student loan debt, and the value for what they received is not paying off for them. So in this day and age, now
Right.
granted, I'm not saying education is not important, but I think the way it's set up for young people nowadays is kind of, it's not fair. And I think they're never going to get ahead. And when you were talking just a minute ago about that, I think a lot of young people, including my son, just exponential amounts of student loan
Yeah.
debt, and they're just so I have four friends right now whose 28 and 30-year-old kids are moving back home.
Yeah.
And I said to my son, he's in New York City. I'm like, oh, well, I do have an extra bedroom, but so I think that to me right now in this economy
Yeah.
and this state of our country is, I think
Well,
that would be,
that's a difficult one
yeah,
because we've kind of set up this societal model that that's what you do, that
right.
you go to college, that you do that, and that you have to in
Hmm.
order to get ahead.
Hmm.
And in other countries, better or worse, they all have their own problems. But for instance, in Germany, you kind of early on get shuffled into
Right.
the professional track or the college track. The
Hmm.
you're going to learn a trade or you're going to be educated further. And when you learn a trade, you're educated further in that trade. You go to
Right.
technical school. You
Right.
you do all those things. And for a lot of people, and that's again something we don't teach our children or young people or even value as much.
We had that in high school. People could do that. People
Right.
could make that choice. And now it's like that's not even an option. And this is what you're going to do. And that's the only. So I think that, in my opinion, that
Yes.
in this day and age, that is a fallacy.
Sure.
Not in
Sure.
every instance, but I think that's been
Yeah.
really an unfortunate part of change
For
in our
sure.
country in the last
So
20 years. Mm-hmm.
conversely, what
Mm-hmm.
is underrated? What are people missing? What do we need more of?
Nature.
Nature.
Nature. I honestly think I'm a nature girl, and I just think that it's my, like I said, it's kind of like my church, and I just feel like people need to get out and not just necessarily hike and but just go sit on a bench or just enjoy the sunshine. I think people, the chaos of life gets to you, and I think that nature and being in nature, in real true peaceful nature, where it's hard to find nowadays. In Colorado here, I just literally moved my horse because where I used to ride, they're building like 12,000 new houses, and I'm thinking, well, this is not fun anymore. So I do think nature
Yeah.
is
Get out
underrated.
in nature.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me, Catherine. If you
You're
want to
welcome.
know more about Catherine, you can find her on TikTok and also purchase her book on Amazon. Links are in the show notes as always. And until next time, I'm Andrew Wallace, and we don't have a problem. We've got an opportunity.